Hello, today I will be talking about wilderness survival. My name is Benjamin Miles and I'm an Eagle Scout. And I put together this presentation to hopefully help someone survive in the wild. So there's four essential things are needed to survive: fire, water, shelter, and food. Today I will teach you about fire and water. To build a fire, you first need to collect tinder, kindling, and fuel. Tinder is dry grasses, cattail, the fuzzy stuff at the top is really good for tinder. This stuff will catch really easily, sort of like dry lint could be considered tinder. Very thinly shaved wood, wood shavings could be considered kindling. I mean, tinder. Kindling, on the other hand, is sticks no bigger than your finger. And these are to, when the tinder is lit, the kindling catches fire quickly and is dry and will create some embers that will get your fuel going. Fuel is anything your wrist or larger. There's two type of main structures you can make when building a fire. The first is a teepee, as you can see over here. This is where you put your tinder in the middle. Then you lean up your kindling all around it. And then you make a bigger teepee around that with your fuel. Or you add on kindling and more kindling, bigger pieces of sticks on the outside, leaving a little bit of a gap so you can light your tinder, and then you can leave your fuel off to the side until you have a nice bed of embers and you can add on your fuel. The second kind is a log cabin. This is where you put your tinder in the center and you put your kindling on top of that, and you use your fuel and your kindling, bigger pieces of kindling, and make a log cabin structure over this. What both of these structures lets you do is create the spark in the tinder lights, and it creates enough airflow in order for both structures to light on fire efficiently and effectively if done correctly. So you can produce fire in a few different ways. You can use matches, you can use your glasses, the concave surface of your glasses. If you pinpoint the sunlight on a hot day into one specific point on your tinder, it will get hot enough where you can start a fire. Another way is using flint and steel, or a bowstring method is where you take a bent stick and you tie a string to both sides. You can use a shoelace or a different piece of rope if you have it. You twist the bow string around a stick and you have a piece of wood that you have on the bottom that you cut a little notch in for embers to fall into, and you have a rock or another piece of wood as a handhold pushing down on the stick onto the little notch, and you use the bow in a forward backward motion in order to create friction. As you can see here, this individual is using the bow method. You can see him pushing down on the top stick with a piece of wood, and then he's going back and forth with the bow in order to create friction on the wood. For water, a great way is to filter your water. So if you find water in the wilderness, this is a way you can filter it without using fire. The first is using 3 bandanas or 3 pieces of cloth, and you basically create a teepee or a tripod. You create a tripod using a tripod lashing if you have rope, or you can make a makeshift tripod, tying a small cloth to the top. The water drips through and gets rid of most of the sediments. Then you have the second cloth that it drips through, and then the final bigger cloth it drips through. This isn't the perfect method, but it can be used to filter some of your water out. The second water filtrating system, you fill with water, then you add a layer of rocks, then you add a layer of sand, then rocks again. Then you can use activated charcoal and then a little bit more rocks, and this will help filter your water. If you're filtering salt water, those methods before won't work because of the salt and other pathogens within the water. With these two, before I move on to salt water, you would also want to boil the water afterwards in order to sterilize it. Using salt water, however, you can't just boil it because you'll keep the salt. So this is a method you can use, which is using you could use a glass bottle, or you could use another bottle surrounded by tin foil with water in it. When you put this over heat, it'll boil, and you use a tube and you seal it on with duct tape. So the water heats up, boils, turns into steam. The steam comes up into the tube and cools, and you leave an open gap, and the receiver container gets only fresh water. You want to make sure that the fire is with the heating of the water is done on a little bit higher ground than your colder water. Food, good food that can be eaten outdoors in an emergency situation is cattails. The roots are actually edible, so you dig it up from the swamp or lake or wherever you find the cattails, and then you cook it over the fire and you can eat the roots. It's really good with carbohydrates. It doesn't taste very good, but it's a survival food, so it doesn't have to. Another thing you can do is pine needles are edible. If you're on a hike, you can chew some, uh, and they contain a little bit of water and some vitamin E, I'm pretty sure. Um, but they contain just a little bit of vitamins, and pine needles are edible. Um, some people make pine needles tea and they put it in hot water and it flavors the tea. It won't make you survive, but it may help a little. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video.